What if the greatest danger in your life is not the enemy who openly threatens you, but the person you think you are helping? You feel their weight before you see their face. You feel their need, their hunger, their trembling desperation that reaches out like a hand clawing through the darkness, begging for you to lift them, guide them, protect them. And you, moved by morality, empathy, or pride, step forward and extend your hand, believing you are doing something noble. But what if Machiavelli whispered in your ear at that very moment and said, "Stop, look again. That person you're about to help might be the architect of your downfall. That person might be the seed of chaos you willingly plant inside your own life." He believed that power is never lost in grand battles. It is lost in small favors, subtle concessions, moments where compassion overrides judgment. Because helping the wrong person is not an act of kindness, it's an invitation to betrayal. It is the beginning of a quiet erosion of your strength, your identity, your control. And because you do not see the danger immediately, it becomes the most dangerous threat of all. Imagine standing alone in a dim corridor, the echo of your own heartbeat the only sound, the air thick with the cold scent of stone walls, ancient and indifferent. This is the mental palace where Machiavelli kept his darkest observations, the place where he studied human nature with the precision of a surgeon and the brutality of a warrior. He watched the strong fall not because of their enemies, but because of the people they tried to save. He watched rulers collapse under the weight of those they pitied. He watched alliances fracture because someone extended mercy to the wrong soul. And he saw patterns, 7 types of people who transform your generosity into a weapon against you. Before you realize it, these people become a shadow attached to your steps, feeding on your time, your resources, your inner fire. They begin innocent, almost invisible. A request here, a favor there. But every ounce of your kindness becomes fuel for them. They grow on it, and they grow at your expense. And so Machiavelli warns you, do not mistake weakness for innocence. Do not mistake incompetence for purity. Do not mistake helplessness for virtue. Some people are not merely incapable of helping themselves. They are incapable of not destroying you in the process. You may recognize them. You may have already met them. Maybe you've dated them, raised them, befriended them. Maybe they sit beside you at dinner or sleep in the same bed. Maybe you've spent years carrying someone who secretly resents the fact that you can walk while they cannot. Maybe the person you thought you were saving has been quietly sharpening a blade behind your back, waiting for the moment when your concern becomes your vulnerability, your support becomes your weakness, your generosity becomes your downfall. But this script is not about morality. It is not about kindness. It is about survival. It is about understanding the darker architecture of human psychology, the patterns that repeat across centuries and empires. It is about the 7 silent traps that Machiavelli believed every powerful mind must learn to avoid. But before we descend into those shadows, now imagine standing on a balcony overlooking a silent city at night. The streets are empty. The moon hangs over the rooftops. The first type awaits you in the next chamber of this long, dark journey, a portrait carved with centuries of blood, betrayal, and psychological truth. When you are ready, I will take you deeper. You feel the ground shift beneath you as you step deeper into the chamber of human nature. Machiavelli spent his life dissecting. The air grows colder, heavier, as though the truth itself breathes here. It is not the cold of winter, but the cold of realization, the kind that creeps up your spine when you finally understand that some people are not meant to be saved, not because they are evil, but because they have already surrendered the parts of themselves that could have changed. These are the people Machiavelli called the unstable, the ones whose minds drift like leaves caught in storm winds, blowing in every direction, unpredictable, impossible to anchor. He warned that helping such a person is like trying to steady the ocean with your hands. You can pour your time, your heart, your wisdom into them, but they remain as they are, shifting, inconsistent, governed by impulses you will never understand. He saw this kind of person everywhere in his era. Soldiers who panicked at the first sign of danger, allies who made promises at sunrise and broke them by nightfall, rulers who changed their minds every time someone whispered a new idea in their ear. They were not evil, they were not malicious, they were simply unstable, and instability is more dangerous than malice because it cannot be predicted. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot prepare for it. You cannot rely on it. Imagine a person whose emotions swing like a pendulum without rhythm, One moment they glorify you, the next they accuse you. One moment they beg for your help, the next they push you away with venom. You walk on the edge of their moods, never knowing what version of them you will meet. You try to steady them, comfort them, guide them, but it becomes clear that you are holding a rope tied to nothing. The more you pull, the more you fall. Machiavelli understood something deep: the unstable cannot be lifted. They drain the strength of those who try. You might feel obligated to help them because they appear lost, fragile, misunderstood. But when you step into their chaos, you become part of it. Their internal storm becomes your storm. Their instability infects your stability. And one day, you look in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize yourself. You have become a version of them, uncertain, exhausted, stretched thin. He described them as mirrors of fear. They do not stand firm in their own decisions, so they reflect the emotions of whoever is closest to them. They absorb moods like a sponge, and when you help them, you unknowingly become the emotional compass they depend on. But dependence always grows. It deepens. It becomes a hunger that no amount of reassurance can satisfy. These are the people who cannot walk unless someone else holds their hand, and they resent the very hand they need. They hate that they rely on you because it reminds them of their own weakness. And weakness, when exposed, turns defensive, bitter, unpredictable. Think of the times you helped someone who constantly changed their decisions, someone who asked for advice, only to reject it moments later, someone who pulled you into their drama again and again, blaming you for outcomes they created themselves. Think of the emotional exhaustion, the psychological wear, the quiet resentment that built inside you. That is the cost of helping the unstable. They burn through your patience, and when your patience runs out, they blame you for abandoning them. In their world, you are always wrong. But this is only the first warning, the first mask peeled away. For as you continue walking through Machiavelli's mental corridors, you encounter another figure standing in the shadows, the ungrateful. This one is even more dangerous, because ingratitude is a poison that corrupts everything it touches. Machiavelli observed that no matter how much you help certain people, they never feel satisfied. They never feel whole. They never feel that what you gave was enough. Your help does not register in their memory. Only their expectations remain. He explained that gratitude requires maturity, self-awareness, and humility, qualities rare even in great people. So what hope is there for those who refuse to acknowledge what they have been given? The ungrateful person is a bottomless pit. You pour energy into them, and it disappears. You give them opportunities, resources, time, and emotional labor, and they accept it as if it were their birthright. They do not thank you. They do not grow from it. They simply return empty-handed, expecting more. Worse, Machiavelli noted that the ungrateful often hate their benefactors. Why? Because your help reminds them that they were once helpless. It reminds them of their own shortcomings, their own failures, their own dependency. Instead of honoring the one who lifted them, they seek ways to diminish them. They exaggerate their own role, downplay your contributions, and sometimes even convince themselves that they were the ones who helped you. A twisted rewriting of history that protects their ego. You might think this is rare, but look around you. Think of the people you have helped who suddenly vanished from your life the moment their crisis ended. Think of those who turned cold, distant, or entitled the very instant you stopped giving. Think of those who blamed you when something went wrong, even if you were the only one who stood beside them. These are the ungrateful Machiavelli warns you to avoid. Helping them is not generosity, it's self-harm. But there is another kind of danger waiting in the quiet corners of his philosophy, the incompetent. This type is not malicious, not ungrateful, not emotionally unstable. They simply cannot handle responsibility, no matter how much you try to guide them. Machiavelli described them as people who carry their own failure like a shadow. Wherever they go, the shadow follows. And if you walk beside them, you step into their shadow too. He warned rulers never to elevate the incompetent, for they would bring endless chaos to a kingdom. But the same rule applies in modern life. When you help someone who refuses to learn, who avoids accountability, who repeats the same mistakes, you become trapped in an endless cycle of fixing, rescuing, and compensating. You become their safety net, their excuse, their fallback plan. And the tragedy is that they never improve. They simply grow more dependent on you. Think of the friend who always creates disasters, financial, emotional, social, and expects you to help clean them up. Think of the coworker who never finishes their work unless you step in. Think of the family member who never takes responsibility for their decisions, blaming fate, luck, circumstances, or other people. These are not villains. They are not monsters. But they will drag you down without ever realizing it. And when you finally pull away, they will call you selfish. But even incompetence is not the darkest warning. No, the darker shadow belongs to the deceptive, the person who pretends to need help but is hiding an agenda behind their eyes. Machiavelli studied such people with fascination, because they represent the most seductive form of danger. They do not beg for help. They calculate. They shape their helplessness into a mask that hides their true intention. They make you believe you are helping them, when, in reality, they are using you. These people are skilled in the art of appearing fragile. They present themselves as victims, as innocent, as misunderstood. They use vulnerability as leverage. They know you are empathetic. They know you desire to help. And they turn that into a weapon. They draw you in with emotional stories, subtle emotional cues, silent needs you feel compelled to fill. You believe you are lifting them, but slowly you realize you are being drained. Machiavelli warned, once a deceptive person knows they can manipulate you through need, through softness, through pity, they will never stop. They will escalate. They will push boundaries. They will pretend to be weaker than they are just to keep you engaged. They will hide their real strengths, their real intentions, their real desires. And one day, when you are no longer useful, they will discard you without hesitation. But perhaps one of the most quietly dangerous types Machiavelli identified is the entitled. These individuals do not beg, do not deceive, do not express gratitude or ingratitude. They simply believe they deserve your help, automatically by default, without earning it. They believe that your resources belong to them, that your time is theirs to claim, that your effort is theirs to rely on. And the moment you refuse, they turn cold, angry, or vindictive. Entitlement is a silent poison. It grows slowly, without confrontation. At first you help because it seems harmless, then because it's easier than arguing, then because you feel guilty, and eventually you realize that helping them has become an obligation. You are no longer choosing to help them, you are expected to. And when help becomes expected, it ceases to be generosity, it becomes servitude. Machiavelli saw how rulers were destroyed by entitled allies and family members who demanded power they never earned. He saw how kings were manipulated not through threats but through entitlement disguised as loyalty. The entitled do not ask for help, they demand it. And when you give it, you lose a piece of your power. But deeper still, in a darker corner of Machiavelli's mind, lies the next warning, the self-destructive. These are the people who sabotage themselves again and again, regardless of how much you guide them. They ruin relationships, opportunities, finances, their own health, their own peace. And when you help them, you are not saving them. You are only delaying their next collapse. You cannot fix someone who is committed to destroying themselves. You only become collateral damage. Machiavelli believed the self-destructive are dangerous because they pull others into their downfall. They create chaos, then look for someone to blame, someone to lean on, someone to anchor them. And if you are the one who steps in, you become their emotional crutch. You carry the weight of their failures until it crushes you. But there is one final warning, the darkest one, reserved for the most dangerous type of all, the dangerously ambitious. These people pretend to need help not because they are weak, but because they are calculating their ascent. They present themselves as allies, apprentices, partners. You guide them, teach them, support them, believing you are shaping someone loyal. But Machiavelli observed that these are the very people who rise through your efforts only to surpass you, undermine you, and eventually eliminate you. He watched how princes were overthrown by those they once helped, how rulers were betrayed by protégés they favored, how men and women helped someone rise, only to be stepped on once that person reached a higher position. Ambition is not evil, but ambition without loyalty is lethal. These are the ones who study you quietly, who learn your strengths and weaknesses, who observe how you think. And when the time is right, they use everything you taught them against you. Not because they hate you, but because you helped them climb, and now you are in their way. Helping the dangerously ambitious is not generosity, it is building your own replacement, And so you walk through Machiavelli's grand hall of warnings, each portrait darker than the last, each one a reminder that helping the wrong person is not kindness, it is strategy gone blind. You begin to feel the weight of your own decisions, the memories of those you tried to save, the scars left by those who used your goodwill against you. The chamber hums with the echoes of centuries, the truths that remain unchanged no matter how much humanity evolves. You feel something shift inside you. Not cynicism, not bitterness, but clarity, a cold, sharp clarity that cuts through illusion. Helping others is not a virtue unless it is guided by wisdom. Generosity is not noble if it is self-destructive. You must learn to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You must learn to recognize the shadows behind their eyes, the patterns of their behavior, the danger in their dependency. Because Machiavelli did not simply tell you who not to help. He told you why. He wanted you to protect your strength, your focus, your destiny. He wanted you to understand that your life is shaped not just by the enemies you fight, but by the people you choose to support. You stand in the corridor now, the path ahead darker, deeper, waiting. There are more truths to uncover, more psychological shadows to navigate. But for now, one question lingers in the air. Sharp as a blade, you descend further into the psychological labyrinth Machiavelli built with ink, blood, and human nature. The air grows heavier, as though each step forward thickens the atmosphere with truths most people spend their entire lives avoiding. This is not simply a hall of warnings anymore. It is a descent into the anatomy of betrayal, the biology of manipulation, the architecture of ambition. Every wall feels alive, pulsing with the memory of people you once tried to help who later hurt you. That ache you feel is not merely memory, it is recognition. Machiavelli wants you to feel it. He wants you to remember the faces, the voices, the subtle ways your kindness was weaponized, reshaped, and turned against you. Because only when you fully confront the reality of human nature can you begin to master it. As you walk deeper, shadows thicken into forms, echoes of those you once lifted. Some stand trembling, some stare with hollow eyes, some smirk with the satisfied calm of someone who has already drained everything they needed from you. Machiavelli gestures toward them silently, not with judgment, but with certainty. He is not here to moralize. He is here to show you truths, carved from centuries of observing human beings in their rawest, most unfiltered states. And these truths do not soften. They sharpen. You pause in front of the first figure. Someone you once helped who never stabilized, who always fell apart no matter how much you supported them. You remember the nights you stayed awake comforting them, the days you rearranged your world to accommodate their chaos, the emotional effort you poured into their endless storms. But their instability was not a temporary crisis. It was who they were. You could never fix them because they did not want to be fixed. They wanted to be held. They wanted temporary relief, not transformation. Helping them felt noble at first, then exhausting, then destructive. Machiavelli did not need to explain. The truth stands before you like a monument carved from your own experiences. But as you move deeper, he directs your attention to another form, the ungrateful. Their silhouette grows tall as if absorbing the light around them, leaving everything else dim. These are the people who took and took and took, shaping your help into their personal narrative while erasing your role entirely. The ones who disappeared the moment they recovered. The ones who blamed you for not doing enough even when you gave more than you had. You feel a cold tension trace your shoulders because the memory is too familiar. You once believed you were doing the right thing. Helping felt good until the day you realized you were invisible. Your generosity had evaporated into a void. Machiavelli whispers that ingratitude is not a small flaw. It is a fundamental character trait, one that distorts their perception of reality. The ungrateful do not see help. They only see expectation. They do not see kindness. They see obligation. They rewrite history so that nothing you did matters, and everything they endured becomes part of their personal mythology. You stand there, breathing the cold truth of it, feeling the weight of every unthanked sacrifice. But the hall grows darker as you approach the next shadow. A heavier presence fills the space, the incompetent. They are not malicious. They are not deceptive. They simply cannot handle life, no matter how much you try to guide them. Machiavelli observed them with a mix of disappointment and clarity. These people take help not because they want to manipulate you, but because they genuinely cannot manage without it. And that is what makes them so dangerous. A malicious person you can detect, a deceptive person you can analyze, but an incompetent person looks harmless, even innocent. You step closer, and the silhouette flickers like a candle struggling to stay lit. You remember the times you tried to teach someone a skill they refused to practice, the times you explained the same concept again and again, only for them to repeat the same mistake. The times they leaned on you more and more, until your life became an extension of theirs. You remember the pressure of carrying someone who could not carry themselves. Helping the incompetent is a slow erosion. You do not realize you are weakening until one day you collapse from the weight of what they refuse to learn. Machiavelli turns his gaze toward the next shadow. A figure too still, too composed, standing with elegance, with subtle control. This one is dangerous in a different way. The deceptive, their silhouette does not flicker. It observes, it analyzes, it waits. These are the people who pretend to be helpless as a strategy. They shape themselves into something you will want to rescue. They speak with softness, with emotion, with vulnerability that seems sincere. They never ask directly. They guide you to volunteer. You step closer, and suddenly you feel that old sting of betrayal the moment you realize the person you were helping had known exactly what they were doing. They used your empathy like a tool, your kindness like currency. Their helplessness was a performance, a carefully curated illusion. Machiavelli called them the architects of subtle manipulation. They are the ones who make you believe you chose to help them, even though they maneuvered you into it. When their goals are fulfilled, when they no longer need you, they shed their vulnerability like a costume. And you are left wondering how you missed the signs. But deeper still, the entitled stand with open palms, not waiting, not requesting, expecting. Their presence is heavy, arrogant, suffocating. These are the people who believe they deserve your help simply because they exist in your orbit. No gratitude, no humility, no acknowledgement, just expectation. They do not see your help as generosity, they see it as their right. You remember the frustration of helping someone who never said thank you, who never gave anything back, who subtly punished you when you said no. Machiavelli explains that the entitled feel threatened by independence, your boundaries, your refusal. To them, your refusal is not a personal decision, it is an attack. They respond with coldness, guilt-tripping, or silent withdrawal. Helping them always becomes a long-term commitment you never agreed to. But as the corridor curves, the next figure sits on the floor, surrounded by broken fragments of their own life. The self-destructive, the ones who ruin everything they touch, not intentionally, but inevitably. Helping them is stepping into a cycle of chaos that repeats endlessly. You remember the people who asked for guidance, then ignored it. The people who destroyed their relationships, jobs, opportunities, and blamed the world. The people who took your help, used it to escape one collapse, only to walk straight into another. Machiavelli places a hand on your shoulder, not out of sympathy, but out of certainty. He tells you that the self-destructive do not want rescue, they want relief, and relief is temporary. Their chaos will always return, and you will always be pulled back in unless you learn to step away. Then you see the final shadow, the one that stands tallest, the one whose presence feels powerful, strategic, silently electric, the dangerously ambitious. Their eyes reflect something sharp, hungry, calculated. Unlike the others, they do not appear weak. They appear patient. They allow you to help them not because they need you, but because your help accelerates their ascent. Machiavelli observed these people in courts, in armies, in political circles, those who began as protégés, apprentices, allies, only to rise above their masters and eliminate them. Helping the dangerously ambitious is the most fatal mistake because you are not lifting someone, you are building. But he also tells you there is another path, the path of strategic generosity. Help those who can rise with you, not those who will pull you under. Help those who value growth, not those who avoid it. Help those who carry responsibility with honor, not those who discard it like a burden. The chamber widens now, stretching into a deeper abyss, where the next stage of the journey awaits. Machiavelli does not ask whether you are ready. He assumes you must be, because no one descends this far by accident. The next truths are heavier, more intricate, more psychologically revealing. But he turns to you with a question carved from centuries of human nature. The descent changes as you enter the next chamber. It is not simply darker, it is deeper, heavier, charged with a pressure that settles into your bones. The walls are closer now, carved with lines that look like veins, pulsing faintly with a life of their own. You can feel something ancient breathing beneath the stone. Truth, raw and unfiltered. Truth that has watched kingdoms rise and collapse. Truth that has witnessed betrayals so precise they scarred the very concept of loyalty. This is where Machiavelli leads you when he wants you to understand not just who you must avoid helping, but why helping them reshapes the architecture of your destiny. Because helping the wrong person is not an isolated mistake. It is the beginning of a chain reaction, a slow, almost invisible unraveling of your strength, your clarity, your path. And once it begins, it rarely ends quietly. You walk deeper and realize that the floor beneath your feet is shifting, almost breathing. The air presses against your skin like a warning. Machiavelli's shadow walks beside you now, steady, unwavering, sharp. His presence feels both comforting and chilling, as though he is guiding you while simultaneously revealing how easily you could fall if you refuse to confront what lies ahead. He gestures toward a torch on the wall. Its flame is steady, almost unnaturally still, casting light on a massive archway carved into the stone. The arch is shaped like an open mouth, devouring, hungry. Above it, a single inscription burns with quiet intensity. Your downfall begins with the person you believe you are saving. You step through. What awaits inside is not a single shadow, but a mosaic of every mistake people make when choosing whom to help. The room is a vast, echoing cathedral of memory and psychology. The ceiling disappears into darkness. The floor reflects your footsteps like water. Each reflection shows not your present self, but versions of you from the past, exhausted, drained, betrayed, confused. These reflections are not here to shame you. They are here to reveal the silent cost you once ignored. Machiavelli stops in the center of the room, and you feel the gravity intensify. This chamber is different. This is where he forces you to confront the deeper layers of human nature, layers even darker than deception, entitlement, incompetence, or instability. Layers that show you why helping certain people destroys not just your energy, but your identity. He points toward a reflection on the floor, a version of you bending down to lift someone who appears weak, defeated, incapable. But the moment you touch them, something strange happens. Their figure grows heavy, their shadow expands, their form becomes solid while yours becomes faint. You sink, they rise. And for a moment, the reflection feels too real. Machiavelli explains softly, in the tone of someone who has watched this tragedy repeat across centuries, that helping the wrong person does not simply drain you, it inverts the balance of power. It makes you the dependent one without realizing it. Because the moment you attach your sense of purpose, morality, or identity to rescuing someone, you give them control over your emotional terrain. You give them the ability to destabilize you, to demand from you, to reshape your priorities. This inversion is subtle, almost invisible at first, but over time it becomes a silent dictatorship. You stare at the reflection and remember when helping someone became part of who you were. Your role, your identity, your responsibility. You forgot yourself in the process. You forgot your own needs, your ambitions, your path. You gave so much of yourself that you began to shrink. That is what the wrong person does. They do not just take your help, they take the parts of you that you need to survive. You move further, and another reflection appears. This one, even more haunting. It shows you guiding someone upward, lifting them from their struggles, offering them support, encouragement, effort, loyalty. But as they rise, something shifts. They begin to climb faster, using you as their foundation. Their hands push off your shoulders, and once they reach a height beyond your reach, their silhouette turns away. They never look back. They never extend a hand down. They never acknowledge the climb they achieved through you. Machiavelli's voice sharpens like a blade. He tells you that helping the dangerously ambitious is one of the greatest strategic errors one can make, because ambition without gratitude becomes conquest, and conquest does not remember its origins. Those who rise through you will always feel threatened by the memory that they once needed you. They erase that memory. Or worse, they erase you. Not always through betrayal. Sometimes through silence, through distance, through forgetting, through indifference that cuts deeper than hate. You feel your pulse tighten, because you have seen this reflection before, not here, but in life. Someone you helped rise, someone who outgrew you, then pretended you had never existed. Someone who used your support as fuel, then discarded the source. Machiavelli's logic is merciless but true. Helping the ambitious is not generosity. It is constructing a throne for someone who will never invite you into the room once they sit upon it. But there is another figure emerging now, crawling out of the floor's reflective surface, like a memory resurfacing from a dream. This one is harder to look at, more painful, because it reflects the times you helped someone self-destructive. You remember the frantic panic each time they collapsed, the emotional storms you absorbed, the nights you talked them through chaos, the disasters you tried to prevent. And yet, no matter how many disasters you saved them from, they ran headfirst into new ones. Machiavelli stands beside this reflection and tells you the harsh truth: helping the self-destructive does not save them. It only delays the collapse they are committed to repeating. Their pain becomes your responsibility. Their wounds become your burden. Their chaos becomes your environment. And they never rise because they are not trying to rise. They are trying to escape themselves. And you cannot be the escape route forever. You cannot outrun another person's demons. The reflection shifts again. Now it shows you arguing with someone you helped out of loyalty. Yet they act offended, irritated, dismissive. They treat your help like a debt you owe. Their entitlement becomes a chain around your neck. Machiavelli tells you that entitlement is the silent erosion of respect. The entitled never appreciate you. They only evaluate you. They only measure whether you are giving enough, sacrificing enough, prioritizing them enough. And no matter how much you offer, it is never enough. Helping the entitled is not generosity, it is servitude disguised as compassion. Your breath grows unsteady for a moment, because entitlement is not always loud. Sometimes it is subtle. Sometimes it hides behind politeness. Sometimes it hides behind silence. Sometimes it hides behind blood ties, behind friendship, behind romance. Sometimes entitlement is quiet, almost invisible, until you refuse something and feel the sting of their reaction. But the chamber grows colder still, and Machiavelli leads you toward a part of the room where the reflections twist into darker shapes. Here, the walls pulse with something like memory. The floor turns black, as though absorbing all the light. And in this place he reveals the deepest warning, one so psychologically heavy that it shifts the way you understand not only others but yourself. This is the place where you confront the truth, that helping certain people is not about them at all. It is about the part of you that believed you needed to help them, the part of you that searched for worth in sacrifice, the part of you that found identity in fixing others, the part of you that ignored red flags because you wanted to prove your loyalty, your goodness, your strength, the part of you that believed helping would earn love, respect, or stability, the part of you that was vulnerable to manipulation because you thought your value depended on what you gave rather than who you were. Machiavelli knows this too. He has seen rulers ruined not by enemies, but by the parts of themselves they could not control. He has seen leaders cling to the wrong advisors because they needed validation. He has seen kings help incompetent allies because they feared being alone. He has seen generals support ungrateful soldiers because they needed loyalty. In every collapse, the downfall began not with the mistake of helping someone unworthy, but with the psychological flaw that made the ruler believe he must help them. You stand in silence as these truths swirl around you like shadows. You feel them settle under your skin. Slowly, painfully, something starts to break inside, a pattern, a belief, a wound you carried for years. Helping the wrong people was not simply a mistake. It was a mirror reflecting a deeper truth about what you lacked at the time. And as that mirror shatters, you understand something extraordinary. You are no longer the person who needs to be drained to feel useful. You are no longer the person who confuses sacrifice with strength. You are no longer the person who helps out of fear or guilt or dependency. You are stepping into a new identity, one forged from clarity, from strategy, from self-respect. This is the transformation Machiavelli wanted. Not coldness, not cruelty, but sovereignty. A shift occurs beneath your feet. The dark reflective floor ripples outward like water disturbed by a stone. The chamber begins to move, slowly pulling you forward. And in the distance, you see the next passageway forming, carved in stone, leading to a deeper truth, one even darker, even more revealing, even more psychologically powerful. Machiavelli turns to you with a look that feels like a challenge. There comes a moment, inevitable and quietly catastrophic, when you realize that the greatest danger in your life was never the enemy who threatened you publicly, never the rival who postured openly, never the opponent who declared themselves in daylight. The greatest danger was always the familiar shadow you allowed to stand beside you, the one you believed harmless, the one you insisted on helping, defending, uplifting, the one you assumed would one day repay loyalty with loyalty. But Machiavelli, cold and merciless in his insight, reminds you that loyalty is a rare currency, scarce and fragile, and the belief that you can cultivate it in everyone is the beginning of your ruin. Because some people are not built to honor what they receive. Some are built only to consume, and when you help them, you become the feast. You have seen these people in your life long before you had language to understand them. The ones who drain you without shame, the ones who weaponize their helplessness, the ones who turn your generosity into their advantage and your kindness into their leverage, the ones who make you believe that without your help they will shatter, only to rise against you with the strength you provided. You told yourself it was compassion, but Machiavelli calls it what it truly is, a strategic miscalculation, a fatal blindness, a sentimental weakness disguised as virtue. And now you stand on the edge of understanding, realizing that every time you intervened, every time you extended your hand, every time you offered a way out, someone silently took note of your softness, your vulnerability, your desire to be more moral than the world. They watched how far you would bend. They watched how much you would give. They watched how your boundaries dissolved each time they pushed a little further. And in that erosion they found their power. There is a truth you never wanted to confront. Those who refuse to help themselves will never value help from you, because value comes from struggle, from effort, from proving to oneself that survival is earned. When a person evades that struggle, when they expect you to be the scaffolding that holds together the ruins of their life, they do not become grateful, they become entitled. And entitlement makes monsters out of ordinary souls. It teaches them that taking is easier than earning. It teaches them that your presence guarantees their comfort, that your strength exists to fill the void where their discipline should be. And then, without knowing when it happened, you become their crutch, their backup plan, their excuse, their justification for never changing. Helping them does not elevate them, it imprisons you both. You in the burden of carrying them in the illusion that carrying is owed to them. Machiavelli understood this dynamic long before psychology gave it names. He saw that some people cling to those who help them not out of trust or affection but out of fear of facing the consequences of their own choices. They believe that your support is endless. They believe that you will always return. They believe that you are necessary for their survival. And when someone believes they cannot survive without you, they will eventually hate you for it. Dependency rots admiration. It transforms affection into resentment. It turns gratitude into a quiet, venomous form of envy. Because deep inside, they know the truth. You did what they could not. You were strong where they were weak. You endured what they avoided. Your presence was a mirror they could not escape, reflecting every flaw they wished to deny. And yet, you kept helping them, convinced that your role was noble, that your persistence was virtuous. You didn't realize that you were feeding a wolf that would one day bite the hand that fed it. Not because it wanted to hurt you, but because wolves do not understand mercy. They only understand appetite. Each time you offered help, you were teaching them that your compassion was their weapon. Every sacrifice you made became proof that you could be exploited. Every second chance you gave became evidence that consequences did not apply to them. You thought you were protecting them from failure, but you were merely shielding them from accountability. And a person protected from accountability becomes a person dangerous to anyone who tries to hold them to it later. Look at your past now with new eyes. Think of the one who always had a crisis, the one who needed saving, the one who swore they would change only to repeat the same patterns while you invested more of your time, your energy, your patience. You gave guidance. They ignored it. You provided support. They squandered it. You believed their promises. They abandoned them. And all the while, they learned one lesson with total clarity. No matter what they did, you would return. Not because they deserved, but because you believed they did. But belief is not a strategy. It is wishful thinking disguised as hope. And Machiavelli warns that hope is the most dangerous drug you can consume. It blinds you to reality. It convinces you that someone will transform simply because you want them to. But people do not change because of your desire. They change because of their pain. If they do not fear the consequences of staying the same, they will remain the same forever, and your help becomes nothing but fuel for their decay. And yet you hesitate. A part of you clings to the idea that you are abandoning them, that walking away means betraying them, that withholding help makes you cold. But Machiavelli would walk into your mind now and whisper a truth you've avoided for too long. You are not abandoning them, you are freeing yourself, and more importantly, you are giving them the one thing they have avoided all their life: responsibility, because responsibility is the crucible in which real transformation is forged. When a person realizes that no one is coming to rescue them, that there is no safety net, that the world will not bend for their mistakes, only then do they evolve. Only then do they awaken. Only then do they rise. Your help, well-intentioned as it was, delayed that awakening. You kept them asleep in the comfort of your intervention. And if they never rise, if they collapse, if they fall apart when you step back, then that is evidence that they were living on borrowed strength, not their own. But the truth cuts deeper still. There are people you should never help, not merely because they drain you, but because they despise you for helping them. They interpret your generosity as dominance. They interpret your guidance as superiority. They interpret your success as a threat to their identity. When you help them, they feel inferior. And instead of working to rise to your level, they resent you for making them aware of their limitations. Your kindness becomes their humiliation. Your mentorship becomes their bitterness. These are the people who repay help with hostility. They smile while you save them, but inside, something sour ferments. They tell themselves that you think you're better than them. They tell themselves that you are trying to control them. They tell themselves that accepting your help places them below you. And eventually, the resentment grows sharp enough to cut you. These are the people who wait. They wait until the day they feel strong enough to no longer depend on you, strong enough to challenge you, strong enough to rewrite the story and convince themselves that they never needed you at all. And when that day comes, they do not walk away quietly. They turn against you, they undermine you, they question your motives, they rewrite history so that your help becomes exploitation, your guidance becomes manipulation, your sacrifice becomes selfishness. This is how the ungrateful protect their ego. They must demolish the one who helped them so they can pretend they were never weak. This is why Machiavelli warns, never help those who envy you. Never uplift those who resent your strength. Never carry those who will one day use the height you gave them as a vantage point to strike you. Think now of the ones who only remember you when they need something. The ones who disappear when life is calm. The ones whose gratitude lasts just long enough for you to feel valued before fading into silence again. Machiavelli understood that these people are not malicious. They are opportunistic. They do not hate you. They simply do not value you. They react to need, not loyalty. Their connection to you is transactional. Their affection is conditional. Their presence is circumstantial. And helping them is equivalent to investing in a collapsing structure. No matter how much you pour into it, the foundation remains unstable. And when it finally collapses, they will blame the storm, the world, anyone but themselves. Rarely will they acknowledge the ones who held them up. That is why you must learn to distinguish between those who want help and those who want rescue. The first seeks guidance. The second seeks dependency. And dependency breeds danger. There is a darker truth still, one Machiavelli knew intimately. Some people secretly want their lives to remain chaotic. Their identity is built around crisis. Conflict gives them significance. Misery gives them familiarity. Without struggle, they feel empty, aimless, unseen. These individuals do not truly want solutions. They want attention, validation, and a constant cycle of collapse and rescue. And when you intervene, you become part of the cycle. They will always return to ruin because ruin is their home. You cannot save someone who uses suffering as self-definition. And the more you try, the more they will sabotage your help, just to recreate the chaos that feels normal to them. You become trapped in a narrative that is not yours, anchored to someone else's storms, sacrificing your stability to keep them afloat in waters. They have no intention of leaving. But the most dangerous of all, the ones Machiavelli would warn you never to help under any circumstances, are those who interpret your kindness as weakness. These are the predators of the human world, the ones who smile when you give, not because they appreciate it, but because they see a door opening, a door into your trust, into your resources, into your vulnerabilities. They study you with quiet hunger, learning the boundaries you refuse to enforce. They test your patience, your limits, your emotions. And each time you fail to protect yourself, each time you excuse their behavior, each time you forgive what should not be forgiven, they carve deeper into your life. Helping them is not generosity, it is surrender. You are not offering support, you are offering access. And once granted, they do not leave willingly. They leave only when someone more valuable appears, someone who offers them more, someone they can drain more deeply. Helping them is not noble, it is self-destruction. Now you stand on the threshold of a new understanding, a clarity forged through pain, loss, betrayal, and hard-earned wisdom. You realize that the act of helping is not inherently virtuous, it is a strategic decision, and like any strategy, it requires judgment, discernment, boundaries sharp enough to cut clean through illusion. You must learn to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You must learn to protect yourself from those who feed on your strength. You must learn that your resources, emotional, mental, financial, spiritual, are not infinite, and giving them to the wrong people is a crime against your future. Machiavelli did not teach cruelty. He taught clarity. He did not teach selfishness. He taught self-preservation. And now, in the quiet of this realization, you understand that helping the wrong people is not kindness. It is sabotage. Not of them, of you. And now you are ready for the truth you have been moving toward all along. The truth that burns away the last illusion. You cannot save people from who they choose to be. You cannot rewrite someone else's destiny. You cannot force growth on those who fear it. You cannot give discipline to the undisciplined. You cannot give purpose to the directionless. You cannot give loyalty to the disloyal. But you can protect yourself. You can choose who deserves your effort. You can refuse to be the foundation for those who refuse to stand. You can walk away from those who turn your help into their weapon. And as you step into this understanding, a new kind of power rises inside you. A colder power, a clearer power. A Machiavellian power. There comes a night in every person's life when silence grows heavier than noise, when the world around you dims into a faint, distant hum, and only one presence remains, the echo of every choice you've ever made. It speaks to you in a voice you've spent years trying to ignore, a voice stripped of softness and illusion. It tells you where you deceived yourself, where you allowed the wrong people too close, where you wasted too much time on those who had no intention of valuing it. And now, as you stand here at the final threshold of this forbidden understanding, a question forms inside you, not spoken, not conscious, but rising from somewhere ancient, somewhere instinctual, a question that has waited for you to be strong enough to answer it. How much of your suffering was chosen? How much of your pain was a consequence of letting the wrong people into your life? How much of your downfall was crafted by your own misplaced compassion? Machiavelli warns that the greatest tragedies in a person's life are rarely accidents. They are decisions. They are invitations extended to the undeserving. They are second chances given to the ungrateful. They are sacrifices made for those who never intended to repay them. And when the inevitable betrayal arrives, you call it fate, misfortune, destiny, but deep inside, you know the truth. You handed someone the sword they used to hurt you. You opened the gate that allowed them access to your world. You convinced yourself that helping them was noble, that saving them was righteous, that fixing them was your purpose. And now here you stand, carrying the weight of consequences they never had to face. But the darkness you feel now is not punishment, it is revelation. It is the peeling away of every comforting lie. It is the death of the illusion that you can save those who refuse to evolve. Machiavelli's world is not cruel, it is honest. And the honesty you face now is this: your life is not destroyed by villains. It is destroyed by the people you insist on rescuing, the ones who drain you, the ones who manipulate you, the ones who borrow your strength only to rise against you later. You imagined that helping them built loyalty, but you see now that it built dependency, resentment, and quiet hostility. People rarely grow grateful to those who save them. They grow resentful because you reminded them of their weakness. You became a mirror they didn't want to face. And so they turned against you, not out of malice, but out of fragile pride. The truth is brutal, but it is liberating. You cannot help someone without becoming part of their story. And some stories are written in ink that stains everyone who touches them. Some people live in a narrative of chaos, conflict, self-pity, and misfortune. They do not want rescue. They want witnesses. They want an audience for their suffering. They want someone to blame when their patterns repeat. And when you step in to help them, you become that someone. You become the closest target. You become the easiest scapegoat. You become the person they resent for seeing their brokenness, their failures, their inner rot. And the day they find stability you paid for, they will no longer need you. And when they no longer need you, they no longer fear losing you. And when they no longer fear losing you, they strike. So now you face a truth Machiavelli understood centuries before you did. Helping the wrong people does not make you good. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you predictable. It makes you exploitable. To those with integrity, your kindness is a blessing. To those without it, your kindness is a weakness. And they will use it without hesitation. But here, in this moment, something begins to shift. The illusions you've clung to crumble. The guilt you carried begins to evaporate. You realize that protecting yourself is not selfish. It is logical, it is strategic, it is necessary. You understand what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that mercy given to the undeserving eventually becomes cruelty toward yourself. Because every time you save someone who refuses to change, you destroy part of your own future. Every time you rescue someone who exploits you, you diminish your own power. Every time you uplift someone who resents you for it, you sharpen the blade they will one day hold to your throat. And now, as you walk deeper into this revelation, you begin to see the pattern with unflinching clarity. You recognize the 7 types of people you must never help, not because helping them is immoral, but because helping them is self-sabotage. The helpless who refuse to stand, the jealous who cannot bear your strength, the opportunists who vanish the moment their need is filled, the chaotic who thrive in crises they secretly create, the entitled who believe your support is obligatory, the parasites who feed on your ambition, the resentful who hate you for seeing them. These are the ones who twist your generosity into their advantage. These are the ones who rewrite history to frame themselves as victims, and you as the villain. These are the ones who repay kindness with venom, loyalty with betrayal, and patience with exploitation. But this knowledge is not meant to harden you into stone. It is meant to refine you into something sharper, something wiser, something more dangerous. A person who helps others out of strategy, not sentiment. A person who gives out of choice, not guilt. A person who recognizes that kindness without discernment is the most subtle form of self-destruction. The world does not reward the blind giver. It rewards the one who knows where to invest their energy. It rewards the one who understands that not all suffering deserves intervention. It rewards the one who controls their generosity the same way they control their power. And as this understanding settles into your bones, a deeper transformation begins. You start to look back at your life, not with regret, but with insight. The betrayals you endured were not curses. They were lessons disguised as pain. They were revelations delivered in brutal packaging. They were the universe's way of highlighting the people who never deserved access to you in the first place. Every disappointment was a compass. Every exploitation was a warning. Every heartbreak was a signal. And now that you have learned to see, truly see, you will not repeat those mistakes. You begin to understand why Machiavelli believed that the strongest person is the one who controls their alliances with precision. Not everyone is meant to stand beside you. Not everyone deserves the weight of your effort. Not everyone merits the privilege of your support. People must earn access to your time, your energy, your loyalty. Those who do not earn it will abuse it, and those who abuse it will eventually turn against you. This is the predictable pattern of human nature, a truth as old as ambition itself. People value only what costs them something. When you give too freely, you teach them that your worth is cheap. And so, in this final moment of the journey, you face a choice, one that will define every chapter of your future. You can remain the person who saves everyone, who sacrifices endlessly, who believes that helping others will one day bring reciprocal loyalty, or you can step into a darker, stronger, more strategic version of yourself. A version that sees the world without the fog of sentiment. A version that protects itself with discipline rather than hope. A version that navigates loyalty as a battlefield, not a charity. A version that recognizes that power is not taken, it is preserved. And here is where your transformation becomes irreversible. You begin to understand something profound. People are not equal in your life. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not everyone deserves the story of your struggles. Not everyone deserves the privilege of your help. You must build a life where your energy is invested in those who rise with you, not those who collapse under you. In those who match your effort, not those who drain it. In those whose loyalty is proven, not promised. In those who see your value, not those who diminish it. And once you embrace this truth, the entire shape of your world changes. You begin to move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. You stop seeking approval. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop feeling guilty for protecting what you've built. You no longer open your door to every cry for help. You no longer sacrifice your peace to maintain someone else's chaos. You no longer confuse compassion with obligation. You no longer let guilt disguise itself as empathy. You become the kind of person Machiavelli would respect: strategic, unshakable, clear-sighted, discerning, self-preserving, dangerously self-aware. And now, as the final pages of this dark psychological revelation unfold, there is one last truth you must confront. One final powerful realization that will determine the shape of your destiny. You are not obligated to save everyone you meet. You are not responsible for carrying those who refuse to walk. You do not owe your strength to those who waste theirs. You do not owe your loyalty to those who weaponize it. You do not owe your help to those who curse you for giving it. Your life is your kingdom. Your energy is your currency. Your boundaries are your fortress. Your discernment is your crown. And now, it is time for the final step. The step that turns knowledge into power. The step that transforms understanding into evolution. The step that separates who you were from who you must become. You must stop helping the people who are destroying you. You must stop saving the people who refuse to save themselves. You must stop defending the people who would never defend you. You must stop giving to the people who only take. You must stop sacrificing your future for those who have no place in it. And now, as these final words carve themselves into your mind like a command etched in steel, you must feel them not just as advice, but as a demand from the version of yourself you are becoming. Protect your energy with the same ferocity you protect your dreams. Guard your boundaries like the walls of a kingdom under siege. Cut off the ones who drain your strength before they drain your life. Walk away from those who will never rise with you. Choose yourself with unapologetic, relentless, Machiavellian clarity, because in the end, the world belongs not to the ones who help everyone. It belongs to the ones who know exactly who they should never help. Now rise, step into your power, and never again let the wrong people feed on your strength. This is your transformation, this is your warning, this is your awakening. Now act on it, now enforce it, now become untouchably, unshakably, unapologetically powerful. Your life begins the moment you stop saving those who were sent to break you.